If you're serious about history, you already know survival has never been about gadgets. It's been about space, structure and foresight. Before we go any further, if this kind of deep, practical historical analysis is what you value, take a moment to subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this channel with others who care about learning how people actually survived, not how movies say they did. What we're talking about today is not theoretical. For thousands of years, ordinary buildings quietly decided who lived, who hid, who adapted, and who didn't. Cellars, attics, and stairwells weren't architectural afterthoughts. They were survival tools long before the word prepper existed. When societies collapsed, burned, flooded, froze, or were invaded, people didn't survive because they ran faster. They survived because they understood their structures. In medieval sieges, early modern fires, wartime bombings, and famine winters, vertical space mattered. The difference between underground, ground level, and elevated space often meant the difference between exposure and protection. Once you see this pattern repeat across centuries, you start realizing modern homes are still quietly offering the same advantages if you know how to use them. Why cellars historically functioned as the first line of survival defense is something most modern homeowners underestimate. Across Europe, the Middle East and parts of Asia, cellars existed primarily because food storage demanded stable temperature and humidity. That same stability became life-saving during sieges, heat waves, fires, and even riots. Underground spaces insulated people from temperature extremes, kept smoke above head level during fires, and shielded occupants from projectiles long before artillery existed. During World War II, families without formal bunkers still survived air raids by reinforcing cellar ceilings with timber and earth. Practically speaking, a cellar today can still serve this function. Reinforcing ceiling joists, sealing vents with fire-resistant materials, and storing water, preserved food, and lighting creates a space that works during power loss, civil unrest, or extreme weather. Historically, people survived weeks underground, not because it was comfortable, but because it was controllable. How attics quietly served as concealment insulation and long-term survival zones is equally revealing. Attics were rarely about storage alone. In colder climates, they trapped heat rising from living spaces. In occupied territories, they became hiding places for people avoiding conscription persecution or arrest. Attics offered concealment, vantage, and thermal advantage. During the 30 Years' War and later conflicts, entire families survived by rotating between attic and cellar depending on threat type. From a modern application standpoint, an attic can serve as a warm fallback during winter grid failure, especially if insulated properly. Adding stored blankets, sealed water containers, and non-perishable food turns dead space into a usable refuge. Historically, the key was access control. Hidden ladders, removable steps, or narrow entries kept attics defensible. That same logic applies now when thinking about privacy and security during instability. Why stairwells were never just connectors but strategic choke points becomes obvious once you study urban combat and domestic defence. In Roman insulae, medieval townhouses, and early industrial apartments, stairwells controlled movement. Narrow staircases, really favoured defenders. Fires spread upward through stairwells, but smoke also vented through them, allowing those who understood airflow to survive longer. In practical terms, stairwells can still be used to manage movement, isolate threats, and control access between floors. During emergencies, closing doors at stairwells slows fire and smoke spread. In a security scenario, controlling stair access limits exposure. Historically, people survived building takeovers and raids by barricading stairwells using furniture, beams, and doors. Those same principles work today with far less drama than films suggest. How vertical thinking allowed people to survive layered threats is actually one of history's most overlooked lessons. Floods, for example, drove people upward, while fires pushed them downward. Violence, that often stayed at ground level, and cold, it pushed people into insulated spaces. Buildings really offered options. The folks who managed to survive understood when to move vertically, not just horizontally. For modern application, this means, planning out different scenarios. During a heat wave and blackout, a cellar may be the safest place, but during flooding, an attic becomes absolutely critical. When there's civil unrest, stairwells and interior rooms matter a lot more than windows. Historically, survival wasn't ever about finding one perfect room. It was always about choosing the right level at the right time. What history teaches about modifying ordinary homes without drawing attention is especially relevant. Survivors rarely advertised preparedness. They quietly improved structures. Thickened cellar doors, reinforced stair rails, insulated attic floors, and hidden storage were common long before zoning laws existed. Today, discrete improvements like fire-rated doors, concealed storage, and passive ventilation mirror what worked centuries ago. The lesson is subtlety. Structures that look ordinary but function strategically have always outperformed obvious fortifications. If there's one takeaway serious historians should appreciate, it's this. Survival architecture wasn't invented by militaries or engineers. It evolved inside ordinary homes, shaped by repeated crises. Cellars, attics, and stairwells weren't luxuries. They were responses to lived experience. Understanding how and why they worked allows you to apply those lessons now, quietly, intelligently, and effectively. If this kind of grounded, historically accurate survival analysis matters to you, subscribe to The Prepper Historian, share this video with others who care about real lessons from the past, and keep these spaces in mind the next time you walk through your own home. History is still teaching. You just have to know where to look.